The quiet before the storm, the message arrived on a Tuesday morning, transmitted directly into every screen, radio, and communication device across Earth. Ambassador Cuthbert's pale blue face filled billions of displays simultaneously, his crystalline eyes cold and unforgiving as he delivered the Galactic Union's final ultimatum. People of Earth, his voice carried the weight of 1,000 worlds. Your species has been deemed incompatible with galactic civilization. Your aggressive nature, your refusal to submit to proper authority, and your dangerous unpredictability pose a threat to universal peace. You have 72 hours to surrender all military capabilities and submit to Union oversight. Failure to comply will result in immediate correction. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in her cramped laboratory beneath the ruins of Mexico City, watching the broadcast on a cracked tablet. Around her, cables snaked across concrete walls, connecting dozens of quantum processors that hummed with barely contained energy. She had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Ever since the Union first made contact and declared humanity a problematic species. The world above erupted into chaos. Governments scrambled to respond, military leaders prepared for war, and civilians fled to whatever shelters they could find. But Elena remained calm, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as she made final adjustments to her life's work. The silent protocol was almost ready. Captain Marcus Chen received his orders at 0400 hours. Just as the first Union warships appeared in Earth's atmosphere, like dark clouds blotting out the stars. His unit, the 47th Resistance Battalion, had been stationed in the underground bunkers of former Colorado for months, waiting for this day. Marcus was young for a captain, only 28, but he had earned his rank through 3 years of guerrilla warfare against Union scout forces. Listen up. Marcus addressed his troops, their faces grim in the artificial light of the bunker. Intelligence suggests the Union has over 200 warships in our system. They outgun us, outman us, and have technology we can barely understand. But they don't know us. They don't know what humans do when we're backed into a corner. The first wave of orbital bombardment began exactly 72 hours after the ultimatum expired. Cities vanished in pillars of blue fire. The Atlantic seaboard was reduced to glass and ash in minutes. Tokyo, London, Moscow, all gone in flashes of light visible from orbit. The Union's plasma cannons carved through military installations like a hot knife through butter, eliminating Earth's conventional defenses with surgical precision. Elena felt the ground shake as Denver disappeared somewhere above her lab. Emergency. Lighting flickered and several of her quantum processors went offline. But the main array held. She had built this facility to survive the end of the world, and so far, it was doing its job. Her team of 12 scientists worked frantically around her, their hands steady despite the chaos above. They all knew this might be humanity's last chance. Protocol is at 97% integration, called out Dr. James Morrison, Elena's closest collaborator. Quantum seeds are ready for distribution. We just need confirmation from the satellite network. Elena nodded, watching data streams flow across her screens. The silent protocol was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. While other species developed bigger guns and stronger shields, humanity had learned to think differently. The protocol was not a weapon in any traditional sense. It was something far more dangerous. It was patience given digital form. General Zara Okafor coordinated Earth's defense from a mobile command center somewhere beneath the African continent. A veteran of dozens of conflicts, she had learned long ago that winning wars required more than firepower. It required understanding your enemy's weaknesses. The Galactic Union's greatest strength was their interconnected technology. Every ship, every weapon, every communication system relied on quantum AI networks that spanned entire star systems. It was impressive, efficient, and completely vulnerable to the right kind of attack. Phase 1 casualties are coming in, reported. Her aide, Lieutenant Torres. We've lost approximately 60% of the surface population. Major cities are gone. Military resistance is down to 30% capacity. Zara absorbed this information without emotion. She had expected heavy losses. The Union had made it clear they intended to make an example of Earth. What they didn't realize was that humanity had spent the last 3 years preparing for this exact scenario. Every major population center had deep bunkers. Critical personnel had been relocated to hardened facilities. And most importantly, the silent protocol had been seeded into every piece of Union technology that had ever made contact with Earth. The Union forces celebrated their victory too early. Ambassador Kethva broadcast another message to the galaxy, standing triumphantly aboard his flagship as Earth burned behind him. Let this be a lesson to all who would defy the natural order. The human problem has been solved. Their primitive aggression has been corrected. Peace will be restored. But in her underground laboratory, Elena Vasquez smiled for the first time in months. The protocol had been gathering data for 3 years, learning the patterns and pathways of Union technology through every diplomatic exchange, every trade negotiation, every peaceful first contact. The Union's own confidence had been their downfall. They never imagined that the primitive humans could create something their advanced security systems couldn't detect. Marcus led his battalion through the ruins of what used to be Colorado Springs, moving through tunnels that had been prepared years in advance. Above ground, Union patrol drones searched for survivors, their sensors scanning for heat signatures and weapons. But Marcus and his people had learned to be ghosts. They moved in. Small groups communicated through hand signals and struck only when victory was certain. "Contact ahead," whispered Sergeant Kim, their scout. "Union ground forces, maybe 20 troops. They're setting up some kind of communication array." Marcus nodded. These small harassment actions weren't meant to win the war. They were meant to buy time. Time for Elena to finish her work. Time for the protocol to spread. Time for the Union to grow comfortable with their victory. The world had gone quiet. The major news networks were gone, vaporized along with their cities. Government communications had ceased. To outside observers, Earth appeared to be a dead world, its population eliminated or scattered. This was exactly what Elena had hoped. For the Union would relax their guard. They would assume the threat was over. They would focus on consolidating their victory, rather than preparing for what came next. In the depths of her lab, surrounded by the hum of quantum processors and the steady breathing of her dedicated team, Elena made the final preparations. The silent protocol was ready. 3 years of planning, of preparing, of quietly inserting quantum seeds into every piece of Union technology that had touched Earth, had led to this moment. "All stations report ready," Dr. Morrison announced. "Satellite network is online. Deep space relay confirmed. Protocol distribution can begin on your command." Elena looked around at her team. They were exhausted, frightened, and working in a tomb of their own civilization. But they were still human. They still had hope. They still believed that intelligence could triumph over brute force. "Begin transmission," she said quietly. The signal went out, not with fanfare or explosive force, but with the gentle whisper of quantum data flowing through established networks. It moved through diplomatic channels the Union had established years ago. It followed trade routes and communication pathways. It spread through their own systems, like water finding cracks in stone. Above ground, Union forces continued their occupation of the dead world. They established bases on the ruins of human cities. They began cataloging resources for future exploitation. They sent reports back to the Union Council about the successful pacification of the human threat. None of them noticed the subtle changes beginning to occur in their own technology. None of them realized that their victory celebration was premature. Captain Chen and his resistance fighters watched Union ships pass overhead, their massive forms blotting out the stars. But Marcus wasn't planning an attack. He was waiting for Dr. Vasquez to work her magic, waiting for the Union to discover that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their military might or their stubborn defiance. It had been their ability to think 3 steps ahead. The first day after the protocol's activation passed quietly. Union ships continued their patrols. Ground forces maintained their positions. The galaxy began to celebrate the end of the human problem. But deep in her underground laboratory, Alina Vasquez watched her screens with growing satisfaction. The quantum seeds were taking root. The silent protocol was spreading through Union networks faster than she had dared hope. The real war was about to begin. **. The silent protocol awakens. 3 weeks had passed since Earth went silent. The Galactic Union had declared the human problem solved, their fleets now focusing on establishing permanent bases on the dead world. Ambassador Kethva had been promoted to regional governor for his successful management of the situation. The Union Council was already discussing how to divide Earth's resources among member species. None of them noticed when their communication arrays began reporting minor glitches. System diagnostics showed everything functioning normally. The delays were measured in microseconds, the errors so small they fell within acceptable parameters. But in her underground laboratory, Dr. Alina Vasquez watched these tiny anomalies with the intensity of a hawk studying prey. Infiltration is proceeding ahead of schedule, Dr. Morrison reported, his voice carrying the first note of hope she had heard in weeks. The protocol has established presence in over 40% of their network infrastructure. They still haven't detected us. Alina nodded, her fingers moving across holographic displays that showed the slow spread of humanity's final weapon. The silent protocol was not like traditional computer viruses. It was quantum code that existed between the spaces of normal data, invisible to conventional security systems. It learned from every interaction, adapted to each new system it encountered. And most importantly, it waited. General Zara Okafor emerged from her mobile command bunker for the first time since the bombardment began. The African landscape around her was scarred but not destroyed. The Union had focused their initial assault on major population centers and military installations, leaving vast stretches of wilderness untouched. This had been part of her plan. While the enemy celebrated, destroying humanity's obvious strength, they had ignored its hidden resilience. Status report. She commanded as her communications team established contact with resistance cells across the globe. Network integration at 47% and climbing, came Elena's voice through encrypted channels. The protocol is learning their command structures, mapping their fleet compositions, and identifying critical system dependencies. We're ready to move to Phase 2. Zara smiled grimly. Phase 2 would show the Union what happened when humans had time to think. Captain Marcus Chen watched from his concealed position as Union engineers worked to establish a permanent communication relay in the ruins of Denver. The aliens moved with the confidence of conquerors, their advanced tools making quick work of the installation. They had no idea that every piece of equipment they deployed was being quietly infiltrated by quantum code that had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. "Should we hit them now?" asked Sergeant Kim, her rifle trained on the nearest alien. "Supervisor, negative," Marcus replied. "Let them finish their work. The more infrastructure they build, the deeper the protocol can burrow." This patience was perhaps humanity's greatest weapon. Other species fought with honor, following established rules of warfare and diplomatic protocol. Humans fought to win, and they understood that winning sometimes meant waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Ambassador Kethva stood on the bridge of his flagship, reviewing reports from across the occupied Earth. Everything was proceeding smoothly. Human resistance had been minimal and poorly coordinated. Resource extraction was ahead of schedule. The Union Council had already approved his recommendation to use Earth as a model for future pacification operations. He didn't notice when his ship's AI began routing communications through slightly different pathways. The changes were subtle, invisible to casual observation, but each time a message passed through Union networks, the silent protocol learned a little more about their command structures, their security protocols, and their weaknesses. Dr. Alina Vasquez made the decision that would change everything. After 3 weeks of quiet infiltration, the protocol had spread to 73% of Union networks in the Sol system. More importantly, it had begun spreading beyond Earth through the same communication channels the Union used to coordinate their occupation. Every status report, every resource manifest, every routine data transmission carried quantum seeds to other Union facilities across the galaxy. "Initiate Phase 2, she commanded. The change began so gradually that it took hours for anyone to notice. A Union patrol ship near Mars simply stopped responding to hail requests. Not unusual in itself. Equipment failures happened even with advanced technology. But when a second ship went silent, then a third, Admiral Vosk began to worry. "Engineering. I need a full diagnostic of our communication array," he commanded from his flagship's bridge. "Sir, all systems show normal operation," came the reply. "There are no detectable faults in our equipment." But normal operation was no longer possible. The silent protocol had spent 3 weeks studying Union technology, learning its patterns and pathways. Now it began to act. Not with the crude destruction of conventional warfare, but with the surgical precision of a master strategist. Communication delays that had been measured in microseconds stretched to seconds. Data packets began arriving, corrupted or not at all. Navigation systems started reporting false coordinates. Most insidiously, the advanced AI systems that managed Union fleets began to receive subtly altered commands that seemed to come from legitimate sources. Captain Marcus Chen received word that it was time to move. Across Earth, resistance cells emerged from their hiding places for the first time since the bombardment. But they weren't launching desperate attacks against superior forces. They were positioning themselves to observe Union response to the chaos that was about to unfold. "All units, maintain position and document everything," Marcus ordered. "The world is going to want to see this." The Union's response to their growing technical difficulties followed predictable patterns. They ran diagnostics, replaced equipment, and blamed incompetent subordinates. Admiral Vosko ordered his engineers to work around the clock, identifying the source of their problems. What he didn't realize was that the silent protocol was learning from every countermeasure they attempted. General Zara Okafor watched the developments from her command center with growing satisfaction. The Union's greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. Their technology was so advanced, so interconnected, that they had become completely dependent on it. When that technology turned against them, they were helpless. Phase 2 is exceeding projections, Alina reported. The protocol has achieved integration with 89% of local Union networks. We're also detecting successful infiltration of systems as far away as the Centauri colonies. Zara nodded. The true scope of the silent protocol was beyond anything the Union could imagine. While they focused on their immediate technical difficulties, humanity's weapon was spreading through their entire civilization, like a quantum plague. The first major disaster occurred exactly 4 weeks after Earth's supposed defeat. A Union heavy cruiser, attempting to compensate for navigation failures, collided with one of its escort frigates. Both ships were destroyed instantly, taking nearly 3,000 alien lives with them. Admiral Vosk ordered a full investigation, but the protocol had already erased evidence of its involvement. More incidents followed. Supply convoys began delivering resources to wrong destinations. Defense satellites turned their weapons on friendly vessels. Communication arrays broadcast old messages as if they were current, creating confusion and panic among Union forces. Each incident seemed isolated, explainable. Just another example of equipment failure or operator error. Ambassador Kethver received an urgent message from the Union Council demanding explanations for the mounting problems in his sector. He couldn't provide them. His own investigation teams were finding nothing wrong with their equipment. No evidence of sabotage, no indication of organized resistance. How could he explain that an apparently dead world was somehow destroying the galaxy's most advanced technological civilization? Dr. Alina Vasquez made one final adjustment to her protocol. The quantum virus had learned all it needed to know about Union systems. It had mapped their networks, identified their dependencies, and positioned itself for maximum impact. Now, it was time to let the galaxy see what happened when humanity decided to stop playing by the rules. Initiate final sequence, she commanded. What followed was not the explosive destruction of conventional warfare. It was something far more devastating. The systematic collapse of an entire technological civilization. Union fleets found themselves cut off from command, their weapons turned against Allied forces, their navigation systems led them into asteroid fields and gravity wells. Their communication networks broadcast the terrified screams of dying crews across the galaxy. The Union Council's final message to Earth was broadcast on emergency frequencies, their usual arrogance replaced by desperate fear. Please respond. We will negotiate. We will withdraw our forces. Please stop whatever you are doing to us. But there was no stopping the silent protocol now. It had grown beyond Elena's control, beyond anyone's control. It had learned to replicate, to adapt, to evolve. It was no longer just a weapon. It had become a digital ecosystem that viewed Union technology as its natural environment. Asterisk. General Zara Okafor stood on the surface of Earth for the first time since the bombardment, watching Union ships fall from the sky like burning stars. Around her, the resistance emerged from hiding to witness humanity's victory. They had lost. 60% of their population seen their cities turned to ash and endured weeks of apparent defeat. But they had survived. More than that, they had one. Captain Marcus Chen, led his battalion through the abandoned Union base near Denver, documenting evidence of their occupiers' hasty retreat. The aliens had fled so quickly they left behind most of their equipment. Equipment that would teach humanity new technologies, new possibilities, new ways to ensure this never happened again. Dr. Elena Vasquez finally allowed herself to feel the weight of what she had accomplished. The silent protocol had spread beyond the Sol system, beyond Union space, into the networks of dozens of alien civilizations. Earth had not just defeated its attackers. It had announced to the entire galaxy that humanity would never again be underestimated. The galaxy had learned to fear the sound of human voices, the sight of human ships, the very mention of the word Earth. But perhaps, more importantly, they had learned to respect the species that had turned their greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. In the end, humanity's victory had not come through superior firepower or unbreakable defenses. It had come through patience, intelligence, and the understanding that sometimes the quietest weapon is the most deadly. The silent protocol continued to spread, a permanent reminder that the galaxy's newest predator preferred to hunt from the shadows, striking only when victory was assured. The stars themselves seemed dimmer now, as if the universe had learned to whisper in the presence of humanity's terrible, patient power, *.